Count now.
Hi, everyone. It is your favorite intuitive guides now, Lauren and Phoenix here again, talking more about your intuition and answering a lot of your questions. Christmas is just over, and we hope that you had the best of holidays and it was celebrated exactly how you wanted to celebrate it. We are excited to get back together and answer your questions. And we love working together. We kind of bounce off each other and have different viewpoints, but still on the same thread. So we're having a ball, and we hope you really enjoy it. So say hi, Phoenix.
Hi.
Okay, so I'm going to start off the session with Vanessa's question, Vanessa Coffey. So she wants to know, does taking a break from spiritual development, like not participating in a regular meditation or some type of spiritual practice, hinder your spiritual growth, or is it part of your soul plan? And, right away, my first instinct is to tell you that it's whatever you feel. I think sometimes taking space from anything in life, even your spiritual practice, can, taking a breather so you can step back and either absorb information that you've received or gotten, really reflect on your experience, breathe. So you're getting some distance from anything in your life a lot of times will give you a deeper perspective of it. So do I think that it's a hindrance to your spiritual growth? No, not at all. I think that it could, my personal opinion is that it can most definitely help, because you kind of get back into being you. We can get lost sometimes, especially for those of us who, like, I'm a very airy and watery sign, and I can be up in the clouds most of the time if you let me. Sometimes I need to get back on the earth and just live my life and not, you can be almost, I can never say too spiritual, but if you're getting so lost in your spiritual practice and your spiritual learning that you forget about your everyday life and to be human, then yes, I think a break is called for and necessary in some cases, and beneficial to your spiritual practice, because again, we're souls having a human experience. We have to live our lives and work with our egos and work with our families and just be. And not without sometimes, the spiritual practice can seem almost like a chore or something we have to do instead of something that we're using for our growth or something that we're really enjoying. If it's at that point for you or for anyone, yeah, a break is definitely needed. And no need to have guilt about it either. Your spirit team is not going to go anywhere. Your intuition is not going to go away. None of that, none of the growth that you've had is going to go away because you took a break, probably a much needed break. So my advice would be to, if you have some guilt about that or guilt about, taking a break, really don't. You need to give yourself time, for how you feel. Maybe it's even like taking a class or, growing up. There's so many things that you really don't incorporate into your thinking and into your life and into into yourself until there's been some time, a period of reflection or absorption. You can learn, but it doesn't really kind of mean anything until you can practice it in your everyday life. You know what I mean? So maybe this step is in your soul plan, and you're going to take whatever you have so far from your spiritual practice, apply it in your life, so then you can be ready for the next step, or a continued practice where you'll learn more. Those are just some examples or some situations you can find yourself, the benefits of taking a break. Now, if you're finding yourself, if you're taking a break, maybe because you're so overwhelmed with other things, you don't have time for it, and you're really stressed out, maybe reconsider. You don't have to do your spiritual practice every day, but if it's a stress relief for you, and if it's, if it's helpful for you still in dealing, then, consider even just slowing down, maybe not stopping completely. It really depends on where you are right now. excuse me, I had an itch on my foot, and I'm trying, and I was trying to reach it. It's not, so conspicuously. But anyway, so that's my thoughts on taking a spiritual break. What about you, Phoenix?
When I read questions like this, because I'll just let you know some insight into my experiences. That when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I had an experience, you can call it a spiritual experience, which scared me to pieces, right? And there was just no way I was ever gonna ever get into that kind of line of work ever again. And essentially it was channeling. Who knew? But I was foolish enough, and I'm going to say foolish because I wasn't prepared for the experience. I'm not saying the experience itself is foolish. People say that Ouija boards are not a healthy way of communicating with spirit, because you're essentially opening a door, and it's a door that's external to you as opposed to your own permission slip that you give people. But the thing is, though, I had an experience, but it taught me so much. But I went into major shutdown because I was scared out of my mind. Everything was coming in waves, and as Lauren was talking about, I was overwhelmed. There was just no way. I was a mother of 3 young children, and there was just no way that I had time to do this. All right, I kind of wish I persevered, but anyway, that's you always have 20/20 vision in hindsight. I responded, and I removed myself from fear rather than a need for a break. Okay, so I regret that because I think I would be further along than that I currently am. But I think they've caught me up by now with because you get all this information when you open yourself. When you walk through that door, you open yourself up to all sorts of things, and it all comes at you at once. So I think I've caught up, but I think it would have been a lot gentler if I had persevered at that particular point. But that's just me personally. The other thing I do is that in life, as Lauren was talking about, you can get overwhelmed with things. There are times when Source wants you to take a break because it's constantly bombarding you and reminding you, hey, you are human and you are having this experience. If it's overwhelming, take a break, step back, take a breather. But the third thing I want to say is your human experience and your spiritual development is not separate. It's combined. We think we remove, when we're having a hibernation or we're having a time where we're removing ourselves from spiritual development, so to speak. We're not. It's just that how much work you put into your spiritual development is indicative of how much you will get from it. Because if you try, good old Yoda, you need to do, not try. Because when you try, it feels like work. But when you do it and it comes naturally, then it's that natural dance of the human and soul. It is not separate. You don't develop separately. And as I talked about probably in the first or second session, it's all about remembering. We are developing our human aspect of how much we can embrace spiritually. But from a soul perspective, this is stuff we already know. This is just a time of remembrance. So your development is your human coming to terms with the fact that you are more than. You are a soul having this you've been squeezed, part of that soul spark. Because everyone is different what they believe, but I've been told that part of your oversoul, if you want to give it that word, part of it, only a spark, has been placed within you to have that human experience. This is why we can have multiple experiences happening at once. That's how other discussion. But part of you is connected to that oversoul that is connected to the information that you can constantly receive. It's remembering how to do that. Now, if you feel like life is overwhelming you and your spiritual practice, and that's another word I don't particularly fancy, because it implies work. Anything that anything, even the human stuff that we have to do that implies work, there's always a resistance. I've got 5 days off and it's fantastic, but knowing that I have to go back to work on Tuesday is like, no, it's like instant break. If you know that, oh man, I haven't meditated today, or I haven't connected with spirit today, or I haven't done any readings for ages, or then you start smacking yourself down, and you punish yourself. It's like, no, stop, just breathe. And as Lauren says, it's okay to have a breather. My first experience, though, of having a breather was about 5 years long, but once a year, Source says to me, "Oh, Phoenix, man, this is too much happening, girl. You just need to slow down." And I get very, what's the word? Very removed from everything. And it's okay because I'm settling into myself, my human, my soul, to work out me. It's very spiritual people are naturally giving people. We naturally give to others. We're constantly wanting to help others and lifting them up and things like that, and that's commendable. But we forget the most important person, and that's us. So when we feel as though that cup is getting pretty jolly empty, and yet we still keep trying to give to others, we can't say no. I mean, I've learned to say no, don't worry, but many of us have struggled to say no to people when they constantly want stuff from us. I don't know if you've ever had a cosmic 4x2 before, but it's when you're just knocked back and it's like you need to sit down and you need to relax, and it's like, okay, and I, because I don't often listen to my own signs. It's me that teaches people, but I get so excited and caught up in everything that I just don't want to stop. But my physical body goes, well, wait a minute. No, you need to have a breather. And I don't particularly like those times, but I know that those times are always temporary. Okay, so if you find yourself either drawn to or are within a period of hibernation or retreat or reflection, that they're always temporary. And as a positive word of warning, there is huge growth expense afterwards. It always is. Every time I find myself just having a quiet moment, whether or not it lasts for a week or a month or whatever, and most of the time for me it's about a week, but sometimes it's a month. But those times I don't particularly like, and it's when I got really, really sick. I wasn't listening to my needs, and instead of just wanting to plow through and get things moving, I needed to Source put the brakes on me, and they did it in the form of the flu, and the flu that lasted for 6 weeks. So it's like, okay, thanks. But I keep telling myself, and this is something I want you to please do, that when you're going through these feelings of retreat and hibernation, it's like, I can't do this anymore, know that you can make it as long or as short as you want it to be. That it's not a bad thing. But you have to ask yourself, are you retreating because you are fearful, or are you retreating because you just need to recenter and ground and get you back into a good mind, body, soul space for you? Because your human and your soul can, and spiritual, if you want to call it that, can never be separated. You are being spiritual just going outside and looking at the sun and feeling the rays flow down into you. You are being spiritual when you're having a shower and the water is going over you and clearing you and cleansing you and doing your ritual in life is spiritual. Just getting up, brushing your teeth. It's spiritual. It's not just, I need to make time for meditation. I need to use my cards and connect with people. I need to get my crystals out and do whatever I do with my crystals. That those actions don't make you spiritual, because you already are. You always are. But you just, sometimes from a human perspective, you need to remove yourself from what is occurring around you, and whether or not it's from human life or spiritual experience. And as Lauren says, it's allowing yourself to regroup and refigure out where this works for you. So and always take it back to what you need at that moment, because it's going to be the right thing for you, whether or not it's a spiritual right thing for you or a human right thing for you. Because remember, it's connected, it's combined. It allows you to collaborate all that you've experienced. And usually for me, it's cyclic. And that's the other thing. Everything kind of happens in cycles, and it happens in Earth. And it also happens with you. And usually around August, September, October, this is when I normally have my moment of having to regroup, reground, recenter. It's interesting. I've only just realized that. But there are patterns of cycles that you'll find in the year that you will need to step back and try and formulate where everything sits for you, both in the human world perspective and also in the soul perspective. So you know what, it just Vanessa, just take it how you think you need to take it. I've had two experiences where, one, I think it was a bad idea to step back, but only because I stepped back from fear. I should have persevered, but I wasn't ready. But hey, I think I'm being hard on myself for saying it wasn't right for stepping back. It's just, that's what I did, and that's how it was. However, those other moments when you take brief pauses and you're remembering, then you are able to do so with ease. So I hope from my perspective that makes sense for you, Vanessa. I do understand where you're coming from. If you're feeling like it's work, then step back. If you are doing and just being in that moment, then enjoy it. You don't have to see things as work when you are developing your spiritual growth. So that's my opinion. And I do hope that some of that, you know, you can see from my perspective that that's what I've gone through from my opinion. So so I hope that both Lauren and I have helped you with that particular question from a different avenues. So Cindey, you are talking about that. This is another question. She's getting a bit more confident, and although at times she wants someone to tell her, she just basically wants confirmation. It's really interesting. At the beginning of my remembering, just wanting someone to, I just wanted proof, it's a common thing, Cindey, is to feel as though you're doing the right thing. One, you're doing the right thing from a place of integrity. Two, you're not making it up. And three, just getting that validation, either from the people that you're connecting for, yourself or source, just getting that validation that you're doing the right thing. You will get that validation. You just have to start listening. And that confidence, and the more you practice, the more you do it, you will build up that self-confidence in the actions that you are finding yourself, or in the situations that you're finding yourself in. Practice makes perfect. And the thing is, so you get to a certain point, like when I first started, getting that feedback was important. And that's why I think the group is a good thing. And when you're in a safe environment and you can put it out there, no matter how uncomfortable it makes you feel to put it out there, but getting that positive feedback or getting some constructive feedback is needed at the very beginning. This is pretty much one of the intents for creating the group that we are currently in. But the thing is, though, you get to a point that the more you practice, the more you do, the less you need validation, because you learn to trust, one, the people that are, the energies that are working through you. Two, you learn to trust yourself. And some of the times when I've done some really hard readings, clients where I work in a shop, do face-to-face connections, and the two times that I had where I felt like I was not on point. It's like they just weren't getting it. In hindsight, I think I was very much on point and they just weren't ready to hear the messages. So just be very aware that even though some of the validation and some of the information that you get back from people that provide feedback, sometimes the messages that you provide are not necessarily ready for them to hear. It's further on down the track that they remember what you say, and it's like, wow, totally get it now. You know, when you told me 6 months ago that this was going to happen, well, it totally has, and I didn't realize at the time that this was going to happen. It's just, but the other thing we have to remember with whatever spiritual modality you use is that you are the conduit. The ownership of what comes through you or what happens through you, whether or not you're a healer, intuitive reader, a coach, whatever, you are not just the only one. You're part of the process, but the energies that are working through you are also very much part of the process. So whatever is said, whatever is shared, whatever is healing that you give, and there's an old saying, energy goes where energy knows. You are part of that process. So taking ownership for what comes out of your mouth or from whatever work that you find yourself in is something that we really have to let go. Because one, a person's come to us for whatever they want, and two, we are providing the opportunity for people to work through us to provide the things that they want. And then the client or whoever you're providing for takes on board whatever they need at that particular moment. So ownership should never fall with you. It should always fall for the person that you're working with. But that takes practice and that takes time, and getting comfortable with that takes practice, and it becomes easier the more you do it. You learn not to own the things that are coming through you. And that may sound like a bit of a cop-out, but the thing is, though, we are spiritual conduits providing the messages required for whoever we are providing them for. So if you can lose the ownership to the situation, and if you but you own your place in it, like how integrity, like there are some times where I feel like I can't provide a good reading because I got a headache or something's happened in my life that's affecting the way I'm providing for the people. I will say, look, I can't do this today, I'll do this another time. You can take ownership for that. You know, you are the conduit, so the conduit has to be free flowing. But please, just as you become more confident with practice, you will find that you will not need as much proof as you started off with. And if you take a look around you and settle with those that you work with, you'll realize that the proof is more apparent than what you give it credit for. But it gets easier with time. You won't seek it so much. So in time, you will find you will not need to see if you are right, because you don't, one, have ownership for the process, and two, you have become way more confident to require it anymore. So I'm going to put it on to Lauren now.
Okay. Well, I really agree with what Phoenix said, and I also really, really resonate with your question or with your statement, because that I felt like that for a very long time. I needed, and first when I would get validation or proof that, you know, somehow I was correct, or I did it very only what I felt comfortable with, only in areas, you know, and that in places where I didn't feel judged, and you know, slowly I started, you know, going outside of my comfort zone, and I did it at my pace, and I'm actually still, you know, trying to do that, and I'm much further than I was before. But for the longest time, I needed to trust myself to even try. Then I needed to trust myself to trust others, and trust myself to handle the reactions, even if it was wrong. And then trust myself with, you know, trying outside of who I felt and what I felt safe with. And it's okay. I did it at my pace. But what I really needed to let go of was the wanting for them to be, so for the person receiving anything that I was getting to really resonate with it, like to really, I was depending on their reaction to validate me, even not just the information, but me, that I knew, that I was getting something and that I was correct. So it for a minute there, the intention gets a little bit distorted, because when at first your intention is pure, then all of a sudden it becomes, well, I need to know. You get almost self-conscious about it, and you're really dependent on, did it work? Did they find my information useful? You're so tied to their reaction and to the accuracy of what information you're receiving and relaying, that then doubt, when I had already gotten all the confirmation that I needed, that I am an intuitive spirit, just like we all are. I just need to learn to trust myself. It became almost towards the ego center, until I had to check myself and realize exactly what Phoenix was saying, that sometimes the message will be received and sometimes it won't. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're wrong. A lot of times you'll look back and say, that person wasn't ready to hear the message, but it really becomes about your intention. So, we get a little self-conscious at first about, giving this type of information and doing readings and trusting your intuition, and we want other people to see that and validate it for us. But once you kind of let go of you get the information, you relay it, your job is done. Your job is done now. You did, as long as your intention and your heart was in the right place, your job is now done. And letting go of that, and not, holding on to the outcome of that, really will allow you to get even better, more information, and to help more, assist more, get, because once you still have energy ties to that outcome, and I don't know how much, you would bet your energy, but if you're still, attached to old things, waiting for that outcome, you're wasting a lot of your energy when it could be kind of more focused. I'm not sure I'm really using the right words to say that. If you have a better way to say that, Phoenix, I'd welcome your input. But yeah, so it really just becomes about letting go and trusting self more. So getting validation is great. It's needed at some point. But at some point, we have to make sure the intention is pure and we're not looking just for the validation. And I know that was a big, big lesson for me. So.
Yeah, it definitely is and it is something that we all go through. Okay, so Cindey, don't feel bad about wanting this right now, because it is something that we all go through, and however short and however long it is, it's entirely up to you. But yes, what Lauren says, if you can cut off the ties to the outcome of what you've done, then it will be easier for you to move on to the next person that needs your help. There was an agreement for you to be there with this, whoever you're working with, and there was an agreement to send the messages across. It's entirely up to the person whether or not they will agree to let it settle with them. And that has nothing to do with you per se, but it's more about them. And it does get easier with time and with practice, and you will find that over this time and practice, you won't even seek the validation unless you're all up here sometimes, because there are times, those times when I had those two people where it didn't go quite so well. I was really up here that particular day. So being mindful of yourself towards the end as you become more confident, is when you have those days where you think, oh, wow, I so totally didn't get it. But you'll find that you did. But this is, making you think differently, making you feel a different way that you should perhaps feel. So, Cindey, I hope that answers your particular question. Feel free to answer, if you have more queries about it, then we're more than happy to answer them later on. So Catherine has asked, how do I discover why I'm here and find the courage to walk the path? Wow, this is once again is a theme that seems to be coming through all sessions, is discovering your path. And I hope you've seen the others, Catherine, because they will really help provide insight into how you do so, and finding that courage. Well, essentially, it does feel like a crossroads. You either walk the walk, or you just keep doing what you're doing. And you need, and it's something I said, and I can't remember who I was just recently, actually. You have to ask yourself whether or not the impetus or the need or the momentum to walk forward is a lot stronger than that which keeps you back. Because if you find that your fears and your inability to take that first step, or however many steps you feel like you need to take, is stronger than your desire to see what's out there, then you may find yourself in that constant state of a fork in the road. And it will always present itself to you, because you will always remain there. There is nothing wrong turning away from that which you, because you obviously have a feeling, Catherine, about the fact that of what you need to do. Otherwise, you wouldn't use the word courage. But ask yourself, how will you feel when you transition and you haven't walked forward, you haven't taken the path that you currently feel that you need to take. I don't know when I said this, but no matter what you do in life, there's no right or there's no wrong. Okay, so there's no failure, there's no past, there is no you're not going to do anything wrong. But if you want the most out of your particular life, ask yourself, do I want to be the best me that I want to be? Or am I quite happy living the same type of life that I've lived? And which is the strongest? That staying back or moving forward? And eventually, hopefully, if this is what you desire, but eventually you will take those first steps forward. I mean, I can almost guarantee that maybe 1 or 2 years ago, Lauren would never have dreamed that she'd be doing something like this.
You would be correct.
And now the two of us are here and we're doing it, and it's exciting and we're enjoying it, and the stuff that's coming out of our mouths is just stuff that we have actually learned over life. We've got the courage. When I was a young teenager, there was just no way in heck I would have stand up in front of people and talk. Sure, I'm talking in front of a camera, but even just talking, I was more of an observer as opposed to a speaker. I've become a lot more speaking now, but that's only through practice. And I found the courage because I did not want to be regretting anything when I came, when I transitioned. And I think if I hadn't done this, it would be something that I would regret. But that was the only thing that pushed me forward. Actually the desire has pushed me forward more than anything else, because I find it exciting. I find it empowering. I find it exhilarating. I find it fun. I find it, just ask yourself, and I'm going to say it again, what has more power over you, the fear or the fear of staying where you are, or what's around the corner? I'm just going to leave that and put it on to Lauren.
Okay. Well, I'm really going to focus on the courage part, because something tells me you kind of already know what your purpose and what you want to be doing. And I don't think you don't need validation from us for what that is. You feel it already. But as far as courage goes, life has a funny way of letting you know when you're stuck, you know. And I wouldn't, it's not always funny, because you'll start to feel it. And it happens subtly at first. You become like dissatisfied. You know, of course, a lot of those things, you know, could come through gratitude. But if you know you're grateful for where you are, but there's something pulling at you, gnawing at you, then things don't just never seem to fall in place the way they need to, and you keep being pushed towards, you know, another path, but you're refusing. You know, you will start to feel stagnant. You'll start to go through a lot of emotions, and you're like, why are my emotions so up and down? Where you start to feel it, and it's not a definite. Again, you know, if we could have our guide come down here and say, this is your path, this is how you're going to do it, get to work, it would be so easy, but it's the fun out of it. So the life will let you know, and at first it lets you know subtly, and then it lets you know not so subtly. So when you know that, you know, say it's a particular job or a position, it's not, you're feeling stuck and things aren't flowing the way they used to, and there's more and more issues around that seem to kind of combat and you know, almost fight you along the way. If you feel like you're fighting every second with where you are, or you just feel like your emotions are all over the place, it's kind of a clue that, you know, that spirit guide, your higher self, whatever, what universe, you know, whatever you want to call it, telling you, okay, right now you're not in the space what brings you the most joy, the most passion. So, you know, let's move a little bit differently. It is always our choice. Like Phoenix says, there's never any right or wrong. We can make things easier or harder on ourselves. And the courage comes from, not that, you know, courage is obviously not, is having fear and doing it anyway. But the way we can reduce some of that fear is not focusing on how many steps we have forward, what it would mean, all the things that could go wrong. If we can bring your attention back to making, you know, whatever step it is you're on now, making small changes, things that will kind of boost your confidence to go forward, not putting all that pressure on yourself to make this humongous change. It's never going to happen overnight. It's not meant to happen overnight, really. I'll give yourself that compassion of knowing, number one, that, you know, the change that you desire and the path that you want to be on may not happen in this, you know, as quickly as you wanted to, as fast as you wanted to overnight, but that if you weren't meant to have what it is that you wanted, you wouldn't feel the pull towards it. And that alone, you know, should tell you that, you know, if it's meant for you, you can have it. Don't focus on the end result and how much has to go into it. Focus on one little step at a time, and life will, you know, things will start to synchronize to make that path open for you if it's your true heart's desire. And the fear is, we all have those doubts and fears, and overcoming them really is about putting your attention on what you're doing now and not calamitizing it in your brain. I know, if I allow myself, sometimes I can go so off on all the things that could go wrong, but really when I bring my attention back to what I'm doing, the whole energy of it changes and you can feel it. So hopefully that helps. What do you think?
I think exactly what you said is absolutely perfect. And I do appreciate your question, Catherine. It's a very good one, and Lauren's statement of simplifying and just focusing on that first step as opposed to the many steps is definitely the answer for everybody to take when they are moving into some new endeavor. And the energy of 2016 is very much about uncharted territories, taking yourself out of your comfort zone, whether or not you want to or not, and discovering new aspects of yourself that you didn't even realize that you had. So I'm going to call the session because my family are about to implode, as you can probably tell. And once again, I'm going to thank you for coming here today. You may or may not see this video before 2016. But if you do, you have yourself an amazing celebration into the new year. And please just take on board everything that you want to take into 2016. That this year has been the one of many, many lessons, and establishing who you are in the next year, and really rising up and reaching forward and making sure that you are the best you and the highest potential that you can be. So I'm Phoenix, and I thank you so very much for watching the session again, and I'll leave Lauren to say the last few words.
All right, with all the love and purest intention in our hearts, we hope you get the most out of this. And if we don't see you before the new year, Happy New Year, and be blessed.